Good evening, everyone. Good evening to everyone online.
O Blessed One, Shakyamuni Buddha, precious treasury of compassion, bestower of supreme inner peace, you who love all beings without exception, are the source of happiness and goodness, and you guide us to the liberating path. Your body is a wish-fulfilling jewel. Your speech is supreme purifying nectar, and your mind is refuge for all living beings. With folded hands I turn to you, supreme unchanging friend. I request from the depths of my heart, please give me the light of your wisdom to dispel the darkness of my mind, and to heal my mental continuum. Please nourish me with your goodness, that I in turn may nourish all beings with an unceasing banquet of delight. Through your compassionate intention, your blessings and virtuous deeds, and my strong wish to rely upon you. May all suffering quickly cease, and all happiness and joy be fulfilled, and may holy Dhamma flourish forevermore. May the whole ground become completely pure, as level as the palm of a hand, and as smooth as lapis lazuli. May all of space be filled with offerings from gods and men, both set out and imagined, like offerings of thee, O good one. In the space in front, on a lion throne, on a cushion of lotus, sun and moon, sits Buddha Shakyamuni, the essence of all my kind teachers, surrounded by the assembly of direct and indirect gurus, ye Dhams, Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, heroes, solitary conquerors, heroes, dakinis, and Dharma protectors. I and all my kind mothers, fearing samsara's torments, turn to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, the only sources of refuge. From now until enlightenment, to the three jewels we go for refuge. I and all sentient beings, until we achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I and all sentient beings, until we achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I and all sentient beings, until we achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I and all sentient beings, until we achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I and all sentient beings, until we achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I and all sentient beings, until we achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I and all sentient beings, until we achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Through the virtues I collect by giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Through the virtues I collect by giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Through the virtues I collect by giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha for the benefit of all. From the hearts of all refuge objects, light and letters stream down and dissolve into myself and all living beings, purifying negative karma and obstructions, increasing our lives, our virtues, and Dharma realization. May everyone be happy. May everyone be free from misery. May no one ever be separated from their happiness. May everyone have equanimity, free from hatred and attachment. You, protector of all beings, great destroyer of hosts of demons, please, O Blessed One, Lord of all, come to this place with your retinue. With my body, speech, and mind, humbly I prostrate, and make offerings both set out and imagined. I confess my wrong deeds from all time, and rejoice in the virtues of all. Please stay until samsara ceases, and turn the wheel of Dharma for us. I dedicate all virtues to great enlightenment. The ground sprinkled with perfume and spread with flowers, the great mountain for land, sun, and moon, seen as a Buddha land and offered thus. May all beings enjoy such pure lands. I offer without any sense of loss the objects that give rise to my attachment, hatred, and confusion. my friends, enemies, and strangers, our bodies and enjoyments. Please accept these and bless me to be released directly from the three poisons. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. So now, my most kind rude Guru, please sit on the lotus and moon on my crown, and grant me out of your great kindness your body, speech, and mind's attainments. I make request to you, Buddha Shakyamuni, whose body comes from countless virtues, whose speech fulfills the hopes of mortals, whose mind sees clearly all existence. I make request to you, Gurus of the lineage of extensive deeds, Venerable Maitreya, noble Sangha Vasubandhu, and all the other precious teachers who have revealed the path of vastness. I make request to you, Gurus of the lineage of profound view, Venerable Manjushri Nagarjuna Chandrakirti, and all the other precious teachers who have revealed the most profound path. I make request to you, Gurus of the lineage of secret mantra, Conqueror Vajradhara, Tilopa, and Naropa, and all the other precious teachers who have revealed the path of Tantra. I make request to you, Gurus of the old Kadam lineage, the second Buddha Tisha Drum Tompa Geshe Potawa, and all the other precious teachers who have revealed the union of vast and profound paths. I make request to you, Gurus of the new Kadam lineage, Venerable Tsongkhapa Jampa Gyatso Kedrupche, and all the other precious teachers who have revealed the union of Sutra and Tantra. I make request to you, Venerable Khalsang Gyatso, protector of a vast ocean of living beings, unequal teacher of the paths to liberation and enlightenment, who accomplish and explain everything that was revealed by the fourth deliverer of this fortunate eon. I make request to you, my kind precious teacher, who care for those with uncontrolled minds, untamed by all the previous Buddhas, as if they were fortunate disciples. Please pour down your inspiring blessings upon myself and all my mothers, so that we may quickly stop all perverse minds, from disrespect for our kind teacher, to the most subtle jewel appearance. Please pour down your inspiring blessings, so that we may quickly generate pure minds, from respect for our kind teacher, to the supreme mind of union. Please pour down your inspiring blessings, to pacify all outer and inner obstructions. Please pour down your inspiring blessings upon myself and all my mothers, so that we may quickly stop all perverse minds, from disrespect for our kind teacher, to the most subtle jewel appearance. Please pour down your inspiring blessings, so that we may quickly generate pure minds, from respect for our kind teacher, to the supreme mind of union. Please pour down your inspiring blessings, to pacify all outer and inner obstructions. Please pour down your inspiring blessings upon myself and all my mothers, so that we may quickly stop all perverse minds, from disrespect for our kind teacher, to the most subtle jewel appearance. Please pour down your inspiring blessings, so that we may quickly generate pure minds, from respect for our kind teacher, to the supreme mind of union, please pour down your inspiring blessings to pacify all outer and inner obstructions. From the heart, holy beings, streams of light and nectar flow down, granting blessings and purifying. The path begins with strong reliance on my kind teacher, source of all good. Oh, bless me with this understanding to follow him with great devotion. This human life with all its freedoms extremely rare, with so much meaning. Oh, bless me with this understanding all day and night to seize its essence. My body like a water bubble decays and dies so very quickly. After death come results of karma, just like the shadow of a body. With this for knowledge and remembrance, bless me to be extremely cautious, always avoiding harmful actions and gathering abundant virtue. Samsara's pleasures are deceptive, give no contentment, only torment. So please bless me to strive sincerely to gain the bliss of perfect freedom. Oh, bless me so that from this pure thought come mindfulness and greatest caution, to keep as my essential practice the doctrine's root, the pratimosha. Just like myself, all my kind mothers are drowning in samsara's ocean. Oh, so that I may soon release them, bless me to train in bodhicitta. But I cannot become a Buddha by this alone, without three ethics. So bless me with the strength to practice the Bodhisattva's ordination, by pacifying my distractions and analyzing perfect meanings. Bless me to quickly gain the union of special insight and quiescence. When I become a pure container through common paths, bless me to enter the essence practice of good fortune, the supreme vehicle Vajrayana. The two attainments both depend on my sacred vows and my commitments. Bless me to understand this clearly and keep them at the cost of my life. By constant practice in 4 sessions, the way explained by holy teachers. Oh, bless me to gain both the stages which are the essence of the Tantras. May those who guide me on the good path and my companions all have long lives. Bless me to pacify completely all obstacles, outer and inner. May I always find perfect teachers and take delight in holy Dharma. Accomplish all grounds and pass swiftly and gain the state of Vajradhara.
And so we can meditate. In the second way of training and taking by means of compassion, we take on the sufferings of particular individuals or groups of living beings throughout infinite worlds. For example, we focus on the assembly of living beings who experience the suffering of sickness and develop compassion. So bring to mind all living beings who are experiencing sickness. Develop compassion for them, wishing them to be free of their suffering. And then we can think, these living beings experience the suffering of sickness in this life and in their countless future lives without end. How wonderful it would be if these living beings were permanently freed from sickness. May they achieve this. I myself will work for them to achieve this. I must do this. From our mind of compassion comes the superior intention. I myself will work for all of these suffering living beings to free them from their sickness. I will work to free them from their suffering of sickness. This is what I shall do. The root text. With the intention to attain the ultimate supreme goal that surpasses even the wish-granting jewel, may I constantly cherish all living beings. Whenever I associate with others, may I view myself as the lowest of all, and with a perfect intention, may I cherish others as supreme. The momentum continuum throughout all my actions as soon as a delusion develops, whereby I or others would act inappropriately, may I firmly face it and uproot. Whenever I see unfortunate beings oppressed by evil and violent suffering, may I cherish them as if I had found a rare and precious treasure. Even if someone I have helped and of whom I had great hopes nevertheless harms me intentionally, may I see him or her as my holy spiritual guide. When others out of jealousy or anger harm me or insult me, may I take defeat upon myself and offer them the victory. In short, may I directly and indirectly offer help and happiness to all my mothers, and secretly take upon myself all their harm and suffering. Furthermore, through all the above practices, together with a mind undefiled by the stains of conceptions of the eight extremes, and that sees all phenomena as illusory, may I and all living beings release from the bondage of mistaken views and conception. The condensed meaning, page 269. Taking and giving has three parts: taking by means of compassion, giving by means of love, mounting, taking and giving upon the breath. Taking by means of compassion has three parts: taking on our own future suffering, the benefits of taking on other suffering, the actual meditation on taking. Page 175. Giving by means of love. So this is the second part of this practice of taking and giving. Thank you. I wasn't sure. I was checking back, but yeah, you're probably right. So thinking in this way, we imagine the sufferings of all living beings gathered together in the aspect of black smoke. This dissolves into our ignorance of self-grasping and self-cherishing at our heart. We then strongly believe that all living beings are permanently free from suffering, and that our ignorance of self-grasping and self-cherishing is completely destroyed. We meditate on this belief single-pointedly for as long as possible. So all we're doing is developing a belief. If you remember from understanding, or how to understand the mind, a belief is not a valid mind. It's not valid because it's not strong enough. But if we continue to meditate in this way, gradually this belief will turn into a valid cognizer. So that in this practice, what we're doing is using our meditation to develop this mind of belief, and then using our imagination, and then eventually it turns into reality. Not overnight, but after a long period of time, a long period of training, eventually when we become a superior being, a superior bodhisattva, eventually we will be able to free others from their suffering, and at the same time destroy our own self-grasping and self-cherishing. So it doesn't work, this meditation doesn't work unless we have this belief. So if we don't have this belief, then we're just going through the motions, just doing the words and sitting, breathing and imagining black smoke coming into our heart, and if we don't believe that our self-grasping and self-cherishing is completely destroyed, and if we don't believe that other living beings are freed from their suffering, then the meditation is not going to work. In the original meditation handbook, the object of meditation on taking was a mind of joy. You got problems? Okay. So the original meditation, the object of meditation was a mind of joy. So that if we're able to experience that joy arising from this meditation, this is an indication that we have that belief that's going on. No, sorry. And so we meditate on this belief single-pointedly for as long as possible. That sounds a bit better. With compassion for all living beings, we should continually practice this meditation until we experience signs that indicate our mind has been purified. These signs can include the curing of any sickness we may have had, the reducing of our delusions, or having a more peaceful and happy mind, the increasing of our faith, correct intention, and correct view, and especially the strengthening of our experience of universal compassion. So I think if you're doing this, well, I know if you're doing this meditation regularly, you will experience a more peaceful mind, and your delusions of anger and impatience and uncontrolled desire will diminish. We may think our belief that living beings have attained permanent liberation from suffering through our meditation is incorrect, because living beings have not actually attained this. Although it is true that living beings have not actually attained permanent liberation, our belief is still correct, because it arises from our compassion and wisdom. So compassion and wisdom are virtuous states of mind. So anything that arises from something that is virtuous must necessarily be virtuous also. So it is correct in that sense. Our belief is still a virtuous state of mind. Meditating on this belief, so the belief is the belief that is actually occurred. And so what Geshe is saying is a correct mind. While we have that belief, that is what's actually happened. We're believing something has happened, and it has actually happened for us in that moment. So it's not, and because it arises from wisdom and compassion, it is not an incorrect belief. It is arising from virtue. Meditating on this belief will cause our potential of being able to liberate all living beings permanently from suffering to ripen quickly, so that we will attain enlightenment quickly. Therefore, we should never abandon such a beneficial belief, which is the nature of wisdom. It is true that at first we do not have the power directly to take on others' suffering, but through repeatedly meditating on the conviction that we have taken on their suffering, we will gradually develop the actual power to do so. So at first we're just using our mind and our imagination to imagine this is happening. But like everything arises from imagination. The reality arises from imagining. This place, this room that we're in, has arisen from someone's imagination. If you can't imagine something, it can't happen, unless by accident. Meditation on taking is the quick path to enlightenment, and is similar to the tantric practice of bringing the result into the path, in which through strongly imagining that we are already a Buddha, we gradually become a Buddha. So it's a little bit like being a method actor. You know, you prepare to engage in be on the stage as a character, and so you adopt all the mode of speech, the mode of movement, and so on, and you imagine yourself as this character. And so you get on the stage and you become the character. You are the character. Your previous self has gone. So you're imputing yourself on a new person, a different person. And because of that, if your imputation is successful, then you are acting as the other person. Yeah. At the moment, we impute ourselves upon our own body and our own mind, our contaminated body and contaminated mind. But the way to become a Buddha is to impute ourselves upon a pure body and mind of an enlightened being. And while we hold that imputation, that is what's true for us. That's true in that moment. And sure, when we arise from meditation, we just revert back to our ordinary self. But there are, for example, actors who remain in character even when they're not on the stage. This is very famous. I don't know if you've seen the original television series called Shogun. Shogun? No. No. It was on television many years ago in the 80s or something. There's a very famous Japanese actor, it's about Japan, a very famous Japanese actor called Toshiro Mifune. And he was a method actor. And there was an American actor in it called Richard Chamberlain. Yeah. And he was being interviewed many years after this thing. And he said it was terrible being with this actor because he was the shogun all the time. Even when he was not acting in front of the cameras. And you can imagine he was just bullying everybody around. But the same way, if we impute ourselves as a Buddha and we maintain that imputation, then that's essentially who we are. We may not yet have the power to create emanations all over the world, but gradually, by engaging in the virtuous actions of an enlightened being, that's what we will become. And the imputation, the imagination, will become reality. You know, that's the whole of tantric practice. No? No? You should go to Brazil and find out. You know, Genla Dekyung's giving highest yoga tantra empowerments in Brazil in the end of October to the beginning of November. So the tantric practice of bringing the result into the path, the result is the attainment of enlightenment, and the path is what we're practicing now. So we're practicing being an enlightened being. The fact is that if we cannot even imagine attaining enlightenment, we will never be able to attain it. So do you imagine yourself as an enlightened being? Yes? No? Most of the time we don't. But what would happen if we did? What if we just carried out this imagination throughout the day? We were an enlightened being who had this universal compassion for all living beings and a mind of universal love for every living being. How would that be? It'd be cool. I'm sorry? Yeah. 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 Yeah, that's right. The words secretly take upon myself. If you remember from the verse, I secretly take upon myself all their harm and suffering, indicates that this practice is similar to the practice of secret mantra or tantra. It is said that tantric realizations can be achieved simply through relying upon correct belief and imagination. That's, so we just believe. Once we engage in the meditations, where we dissolve ourselves into emptiness and arise from that emptiness as the enlightened being, and we believe this is who I am, this is who I am now, and we imputing ourselves upon this pure being, pure body, pure mind, pure deeds, pure environment. And if we continue, if we were to be like this Japanese actor, that's what we would experience. You wouldn't be bullying everybody. We'd be helping everybody. This practice is very simple. All we need to do is become deeply familiar with meditation on correct belief and imagination as presented in Tantra by applying continual effort. How is it possible for something that exists only in our imagination to become a reality? It is a remarkable quality of the mind that we first create objects with our imagination and then bring them into our everyday reality. In fact, everything starts in the imagination. For example, the house we are presently living in was first created in the imagination of the architect. He or she then made a design on paper which acted as the blueprint for the actual building. If no one had first imagined our house, it would never have been built. In reality, our mind is the creator of all we experience. All external creations such as money, cars, and computers were developed in dependence upon someone's imagination. If no one had imagined them, they would never have been invented. In the same way, all inner creations and all Dharma realizations, even liberation and enlightenment, are developed in dependence upon the imagination. So, we can attain liberation and enlightenment because they do not exist inherently. If something exists, if enlightenment existed inherently, we could never attain it. Because something that is inherently existent cannot be affected by anything and does not affect anything else. So it's like you have a dark hole existing somewhere that you can never attain. So the implication therefore is, if something is not inherently existent, it must only exist as an appearance to mind, or a name, mere name. Liberation is just a name, enlightenment is just a name, and because of that, it is attainable. We can create enlightenment within our own mind. If you look at the definition of enlightenment, it's the inner light of wisdom that is completely free from mistaken appearance and mistaken conception, that has the power to bring happiness and peace to every living being every day. And all of that is mental. It's a mental position, a mental construct. That's all. And that's all we're doing is changing our own mind, what we impute as ourself. So Tantra is the quick path to that, by changing very quickly how we impute ourself. At the moment when you think self, you think of something that is imputed upon your ordinary mind and body. Yeah? But if you realize that neither of those are inherently existent, then you can dissolve them away into emptiness. Yeah? You can realize the emptiness of your own self. It's not as if you're dissolving away something physical. I mean, your body doesn't exist other than an appearance. You realize that, right? No? We've done these meditations countless times. It's almost like we resist it because we want that to be something. But our body is, if you check, is just an appearance. An appearance is just an aspect of mind. And because of that, we can change how our body appears to us simply by changing how we think about it. So instead of thinking this is the body of whoever, we just think we dissolve it into emptiness. We can't attain enlightenment on the basis of a contaminated body, but we imagine our body becoming completely pure. There's an expression, everything is purified in emptiness. So just by imagining the emptiness of our body, and it's just this space-like emptiness, and from that space-like emptiness arises a different body, the body of a tantric deity like Vajragini or Heruka or Tara or Avalokiteshvara or Maitreya, which reminds me, you can do this in 2 weeks' time or 10 days' time maybe. And so we're using our imagination to recreate ourselves as this enlightened being. And then if we have a correct belief, and we believe that this is who I am, then that is who you are. And if you maintain that correct belief, then you maintain yourself as an enlightened being. And again, as I mentioned, the problem before is that when we arise from meditation, we see our ordinary body, what appears as our ordinary body, and then we go back to imputing our ordinary self again. So there are two obstructions to omniscience, to becoming a Buddha. One is wrong conceptions, and the other is wrong appearances. And it's the wrong appearances that are the real obstruction to enlightenment. Because what appears to us just appears as ordinary conceptions and ordinary appearances. How is it possible for something that exists only in our imagination to become a reality? It is we've done that. In the same way, all inner creations and all Dharma realizations, even liberation and enlightenment, are developed in dependence upon the imagination. Therefore, for both worldly and spiritual attainments, the imagination is of primary importance. There's a nice expression, I don't know if you have it here, but they certainly have it in America. It's called fake it until you make it. So faking it is just imagining it, and eventually you make it. It becomes reality. If we imagine something that could, in theory, exist, and then familiarize our mind with it for long enough, eventually it will appear directly to our mind. First to our mental awareness, so we imagine it's appearing in our mental awareness, and then even to our sense awareness. So if, for example, you were meditating as self-generating as a Heruka, when you look down at your body, you've got a blue body, and you see a blue body. So it's appearing to your sense awareness. So until that happens, you can just imagine you have a blue body with 12 arms and so on. For as long as the object is still just an imagined object, the mind that apprehends it is simply a belief. If the object is a beneficial one, it is a correct belief. So there is the definition of a correct belief. The object that you believe is beneficial or conducive to enlightenment or to liberation, or is a virtuous object. And if the object stimulates delusions, it is an incorrect belief. A belief is a conceptual mind that apprehends its object by means of a generic or mental image of that object. So in order to impute yourself as Heruka or Vajrayogini, you have to have an image of Heruka or Vajrayogini. So like we have statues and we have paintings and so on of Heruka and Vajrayogini. But once you have seen those, then you have that generic image of Heruka, or you have a generic image of Vajrayogini. And once you have that generic image, then you can simply, with the power of your own imagination, just impute yourself as the same as that image. Yeah? No? Like when you were kids, you used to play doctors and nurses and cowboys and Indians and so on. You're imputing yourself as who? Tonto or the Lone Ranger. If we meditate on a correct belief for long enough, the generic image will become progressively more transparent until eventually it disappears entirely and we perceive the object directly. So like that Japanese actor, he perceives himself directly as the shogun. The imagined object will then become a real object. By meditating on the beneficial belief that we have liberated all sentient beings and destroyed our self-cherishing mind, eventually we will actually accomplish this. Our correct belief will have transformed into a valid cognizer, a completely reliable mind. How is it possible to free all living beings from their suffering? What makes that possible? I mean, do you have to run around, with a stethoscope and whatever? Sorry? Believing, yes. But how is that possible? Just by belief. Yes, yeah. But I mean, there may be some people who just believe that anyway, but it's not possible for them. But they spend a lot of their energy and time, like going to places where it's there's a lot of sickness and so on, and injury and battles and so on. But they're never going to attain freeing every living being from their suffering. But how can Buddhists accomplish that? What makes that possible? Yeah, and other living beings are also just appearances. other living beings are not inherently existent. And so just by the power of imagination and belief, it is possible to free other living beings from their suffering. Anyway. In the second way of training and taking by means of compassion, we take on the sufferings of particular individuals or groups of living beings throughout infinite worlds. For example, we focus on the assembly of living beings who experience the suffering of sickness and develop compassion, and so on. We've already done that. Thinking in this way, we imagine that the suffering of sickness of all living beings gathers together in the aspect of black smoke. This dissolves into our ignorance of self-grasping and self-cherishing at our heart, and we then strongly believe that all these living beings are permanently freed from sickness, and that our ignorance of self-grasping and self-cherishing is completely destroyed. We meditate on this belief single-pointedly for as long as possible. In the same way, we can practice the meditation on taking while focusing on a particular individual or group of living beings who are experiencing other sufferings such as poverty, fighting, and famine. Whenever we are experiencing a particular problem, whether from sickness, lack of resources, or our delusions, we can think about the countless sentient beings who are experiencing similar problems. And then, with a compassionate motivation, we imagine taking on their suffering. This will help us deal with our own problem, and by purifying the negative karma that prolongs the problem, may even rid us of it. So we imagine and we contemplate people with the same issue. So a very common practice is to if you have a cancer, you do taking and giving with this on this cancer. Imagine you're taking away all the suffering of cancer from every other living being who has the same cancer. You're taking it into yourself, and then you're giving them your happiness and your future happiness, your potential for happiness. So the explanation of how this works is that that meditation changes the aspects of our own mind, which may well be the cause of the physical cancer. And there's been many incidents, even in our own tradition, of people who have gone into remission using this practice of taking and giving. I have to tell you a story. It's related to this, but not the same. One of my students in North Carolina had a melanoma on his arm, and he had it cut out, but he also had to take out his lymph node as well. And so after this, he had to wait about 9 months or a year to see if it had returned in his body, and if it has, then it's a pretty dangerous situation. So he goes back to his appointment after 9 months or a year, whenever it was. And he's with his mother. They're sitting in the waiting room. It was on Tara Day, and they're both reciting Tara prayers, and this went on for about 45 minutes, an hour. They're waiting, and suddenly the door opens, and out comes this doctor dressed in green scrubs. She says, "Hello, my name is Tara. You're completely clear." That's a true story. Hello, my name is Tara. See the power of reciting Tara's mantra. The quick action. If we're suffering from strong attachment, for example, we can consider all those who are also suffering from attachment. Develop compassion for them and imagine that we take on all their attachment together with the suffering it causes. You ever suffered from attachment? You ever not suffered from attachment? Attachment, your name is suffering. So this is a powerful method for destroying our own attachment, if you choose to use it. Taking motivated by compassion is an extremely pure mind, unstained by self-cherishing. When our mind is pure, this in turn makes all our actions pure, so that we become a pure being. If we die with strong compassion for all living beings, we will definitely be born in the pure land of a Buddha. This is because our compassion that manifests when we are dying will directly cause our potential for taking rebirth in the pure land of a Buddha to ripen. This is the good result of a good heart. The result of maintaining the good heart of sincerely wishing to liberate permanently all living beings from suffering is that we ourselves will experience permanent liberation from suffering by taking rebirth in the pure land of a Buddha. To conclude our meditation sessions on taking, we dedicate our merit to freeing all sentient beings from their suffering and problems and to lasting peace in this world. Do you remember the story of Geshe Shikawa, the author of Universal Compassion? How he used to pray to be reborn in the hell realms, so he could help all the beings who are residing in there, trapped in the hell realms. But then on the day he was dying, he said to his assistant, "Oh, I'm so disappointed, I'm not going to be able to be reborn in the hell realms, I'm going directly to the Pure Land." And because of he has compassion. You know, you can't go to the hell realms with a mind of great compassion. You must necessarily go to the Pure Land. But I think he was able to send all kinds of emanations to the hell realms to help other living beings there. So that's what you will be doing when you become a Buddha. Be creating emanations everywhere to help other living beings. Some of them will be dogs with all kinds of sores and maggots on them, just to help practitioners develop their mind of compassion. So you can stop there. Sudana. The car's nearly out of petrol. There's only about 40 miles left. Mhm. Yeah.
You don't need it before.
No. Sorry? Yeah. My body has a cold. It's not me. Oh, I just got a little bit of cramp. That's all. My ankle's pretty good now. Sorry? No, because I've got this cold. But next year, so I'll be out running. Well,
sense to me.
So normally we would be having a discussion next week, but I think we should just finish this chapter next week and then have a discussion the following week. So we'll do the section from page 175 to the end of the chapter on giving by means of love. And mounting, taking and giving upon the breath. So that mounting, taking, giving upon the breath is, you can do it anywhere, anytime. It's very nice to practice. You could be out walking in the park, doing taking and giving for all the birds and the people with their parents with their strollers, how they must be suffering. You know, children are true sufferings, right? Yeah. Some meditation for next week. Taking and giving. Of which aspect? For one group or self or? Okay. Okay. So, practice in the break. Practice in the break. Practice taking and giving. With strong belief and imagination. Okay.
Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Soha. Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Soha. Through the virtues I have collected, by practicing the stages of the path, may all living beings find the opportunity to practice in the same way. However many living beings there are, experiencing mental and physical suffering, may their suffering cease through the power of my merit, and may they find everlasting happiness and joy. May everyone experience the happiness of humans and gods, and quickly attain enlightenment, so that samsara is finally extinguished. For the benefit of all living beings as extensive as space, may I attain great wisdom like that of Manjushri, great compassion like that of Avalokiteshvara, great power like that of Vajrapani. The Buddha Dhamma is the supreme medicine that relieves all mental pain. So may this precious Dhamma jewel pervade all worlds throughout space. May there arise in the minds of all living beings great faith in Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, and thus may they always receive the blessings of the three precious gems. May there never arise in this world the miseries of incurable disease, famine, or war, or the dangers of earthquakes, fires, floods, storms, and so forth. May all mother beings meet precious teachers, who reveal the stages of the path to enlightenment, and through engaging in this path, may they quickly attain the ultimate peace of full enlightenment. Through the blessings of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, the truth of actions and their effects, and the power of my pure superior intention, may all my prayers be fulfilled. So that the tradition of Tsongkhapa, the king of the Dhamma, may flourish. May all obstacles be passed
Thank you, everyone.